You've probably heard of theories before. Theories in life, theories in science. But what is a theory? A theory is a system of ideas intended to explain something, especially one based on general principles independent of the thing to be explained. For example, Darwin's theory of evolution. All living things change and develop over time through natural selection, a process where the organisms with the best adaptations for survival will carry on. This is a theory. We can use this theory to explain why giraffes have grown really tall, long necks and spots, or why horses have gotten taller and faster. If you're using theories to explain how or why something works, what are some theories for the classroom? You are well on your way to being a teacher, whether it is for young elementary students, older secondary students, or post-secondary adults. There are three main learning theories related to education, and they benefit different learners at different stages on the education journey. Today, we will explain more about these theories and give you a little bit of an overview about them and how we apply them as teachers in our own classrooms. Let's start with behaviorism. In his 2004 paper, Woolfolk writes that behaviorism attempts to explain learning by focusing on external events as the cause of changes in observable behaviors. Behaviorism can be explained by looking at both classical and operant conditioning. Classical conditioning is like Pavlov training the dogs to salivate whenever they hear the bell. Operant conditioning is different. Developed by Skinner, this model is a result of a response being followed by a reinforcing stimulus. In this theory, the response from an organism is totally voluntary, and it can be good or bad. So, for example, when a teacher asks a question, students either raise their hand to answer or call out an answer without waiting or raising their hand. The reinforcing stimulus occurs after the response and is meant to encourage or discourage the behavior. So if the student who raises their hand is praised for volunteering and waiting their turn, that should encourage other students to do the same. If a student who shouted out an answer is reprimanded by the teacher for not waiting their turn, it is meant to discourage other students from following the same behavior pattern. Behaviorists have come to the conclusion that, despite having some very big differences, there are some basic assumptions that apply to both of these conditionings. One is that all organisms are born as a blank slate, and their behaviors are all totally voluntary in response to the stimulus in their environment. For example, when a baby cries and it is picked up by a parent, or hugged, or cuddled, or fed, then it learns how to get that response again from the environment in the future. Another basic assumption is that learning is largely the result of environmental events. Think about your elementary school classrooms, and then as you got older, your high school classrooms. When you started out in elementary school, your classrooms were probably very bright and colorful, with lots of posters and pictures and anchor charts that served as reminders for how to behave, or what day of the week it was, or what day of the month it was, or even what your schedule was supposed to be and what you were supposed to be doing and when. Then, as you got older, you needed less reminders, less anchors, less pictures and posters, and your high school classrooms probably got more neutral, less colorful, less reminders hanging on the walls to help you with understanding how to behave, because you should have learned this already. Now, think about your classroom as an educator. How would you use positive reinforcement to help with your behaviors in the classroom? Would you imagine using a behavioristic situation in a younger classroom or with older students? Do you think there's a better way to engage and teach the older population? Let's hear more about the cognitivism theory from Nelson.
While behaviorism looks at what people do and constructivism looks at how people build meaning, cognitivism focuses on what happens inside the mind, how we take in, organize, save, and remember information. As educators, understanding these mental processes help us create better learning experiences. Now that we see cognitivism's focus, let's break it down to how it actually works. The brain isn't just reacting, it's processing. Cognitivism gives us three big ideas. One, mental schemas. Think folders in the brain. New information gets sorted like piling past tense verbs with noun grammar. Two, prior knowledge. Learning clicks when connecting to familiar things, like recognizing Spanish food words from Hispanic restaurants. Three, memory limits. Too much information can cause overload and students forget. So, what does this look like for real learners? Students don't just memorize, they compare, question, and fit ideas together. Learning sticks when it connects to their lives. Ever eaten Mexican food? Then aguacate and chile in a Spanish class makes sense. And long lessons overwhelm. But small chunks, they help focus and memory. With these principles in mind, here's how to put them into action. Tools like Bloom's taxonomy and backward design fit cognitivism perfectly. They structure content to how the brain learns best. All this leads to one clear takeaway. Cognitivism reveals how the brain learns, helping us build clearer, more engaging lessons. Next, Constructivism, how learners create meaning from experience.
So, understanding constructivism in education. When developing your personal philosophy of teaching, it's essential to explore many educational theories that shape classroom practices. One such influential theory is Constructivism, a branch of Cognitivism, which emphasizes that students learn by building on their prior experiences. Constructivism is often described through several well-known educational theorists. Maria Montessori referred to it as a child-centered approach. Jerome Bruner called it discovery learning. And Jean Piaget, a prominent psychologist, explored it through his stages of cognitive development, focusing on how children interact with their environment to build understanding. At its core, constructivism is grounded in real-world experiences that are continuously reflected upon and reshaped. But what does that really mean? Students construct their own understanding by connecting new information to what they already know. Picture trying to bake a cake without knowing the ingredients or steps involved. It's confusing, frustrating, and discouraging. This is how learning can feel when prior knowledge is not considered. Instead, constructivism encourages giving students the tools they need while acknowledging and utilizing their previous experiences. Rather than starting with isolated facts such as the ingredients, learning begins with the whole concept, like the full cake, and then breaks it down into meaningful parts: how to bake, what ingredients go together, and why. It reflects real-world cognition. We connect the known with the unknown to make sense of new experiences. Here are a few key principles of constructivist teaching. Start with prior knowledge. Recognize and assess what students already know before introducing new content. Make learning active. Shift from passive reception of information to engaging hands-on experiences. Foster collaboration. Encourage social interaction, discussion, and teamwork as learning is seen as a shared process. View knowledge as evolving. Understanding grows and changes with new experiences and insights. Use challenging real-world tasks. Pose problems that prompt reflection and allow students to test and revise their thinking. Value the learning process. The journey of learning is as important as the final outcome. Observation, student work, and formative assessments like portfolios are valuable tools for tracking growth. Now, ultimately, constructivism reminds us that we just cannot simply deposit knowledge into students' minds. Instead, we must design meaningful learning experiences where students can connect the new with the familiar, actively build understanding, and grow their knowledge in a lasting way. Now, me and my team hope that you learned something from this video today, and I hope these learning theories can help you develop your own learning philosophies in your own classroom. Thank you.